In Laboratory Reddit, today's story is...
My parents were secretly financing my narcissistic 30-year-old brother and demanded that I postpone my wedding for a decade. Karma came back with a vengeance. I am 26 and have been with Elliot, my now 28-year-old husband, for 6 years. We got engaged 2 years ago and finally had our wedding last weekend. However, the whole event was surrounded by some pretty serious family complications. I totally understand that weddings tend to generate family tensions, but small problems like seating arrangements are one thing, and what happened with my brother, the family favorite, is quite another. To give you some context, I am the younger of 2 siblings. Tom, my 30-year-old brother, has always been the favorite child in our family. And he had reason to be. He was a star athlete in high school, he got into a prestigious university on a partial scholarship, and everyone in the family always believed he would achieve great things. The problem is that since he finished university 8 years ago, he has supposedly been, quote, finding himself and exploring possibilities. He has had about 6 different jobs, none lasting more than a year. He has moved back in with my parents on 3 separate occasions, and he constantly talks about big plans that never materialize. He is always promoting some ambitious project, a novel business idea, a radical career change, or some new university degree, but so far, nothing has come to fruition. As for me, I studied at a normal state university, got my degree in accounting, got a good job at a major firm immediately after graduating, and have been steadily building my career without rushing. I met Elliot during my last year of college, when he was starting his master's degree. After 2 years of dating, we decided to move in together, and after 4 years of living together, we got engaged. Everything was going perfectly well, and we were excited about our future until we started organizing our wedding. That's when the situation took an unexpected turn. My parents called me to have a meeting and share something completely absurd with me. They sat me down and told me that I needed to postpone my wedding plans for at least 8 to 10 years because Tom was still trying to get his life in order. No, you didn't misread. They weren't talking about months but years. According to them, Tom had something important coming up, but when I asked them what it was, their answers were incredibly vague. It seemed that not even they knew for sure. They mentioned something about a possible business deal or maybe going back to school to do an MBA, but they themselves were unclear about the details. The only thing they were clear about was that it would be bad for the younger sister to get married before the older brother, and they were worried because Tom's self-esteem had not been at its best lately. If the family continued to move forward while he remained stagnant in his life, they didn't know what the consequences might be. I must admit that I laughed because it sounded completely ridiculous, but they remained serious and asked me to stop laughing because they were completely serious. They explained that Tom's life had been going downhill since he finished high school, because, although he managed to graduate from college, things had not gone according to plan. He had not been as successful in sports at college, nor had he landed a great job when he graduated. I explained clearly that Tom is 30 years old and that I can't just put my life on hold for him. If I could live all these years in the shadow of his successes without getting depressed, I didn't understand why he couldn't do the same for his sister at this point. Besides, we had already been preparing for months. We had saved money, started looking for locations, and were choosing a date for the following spring. But instead of understanding my position, my parents clung to their idea, insisting that I should be patient to prevent Tom from falling into a deep depression. I told them clearly, look, Elliot and I have been together for 6 years, and our wedding is about celebrating our relationship, not Tom's problems. We can't wait another 8 or 10 years. We want to start a family after we get married. We're not going to put our lives on hold for my brother. Then my mother mentioned how they had helped me pay for my university expenses, trying to make me feel guilty so that I would accept the madness they were proposing to me. Yes, they helped me with university, and I am deeply grateful for that, but since graduating, I have been completely independent in financial terms, and I have never asked them for anything. Elliot was absolutely furious when I told him about this conversation. He has always been respectful of my family, but there is a limit to everything. He said that the idea of stopping our lives just so that Tom wouldn't feel bad was completely absurd, because in 10 years, Tom's life could still be exactly the same mess, and, What would they do then? Ask us for another 10 years. So Elliot and I made the decision to get married anyway, like it or not, and whoever wanted to attend. We started planning everything discreetly. We did it this way because we thought that if my parents knew we were going ahead with the wedding, they would continue to interfere. We invited only our closest friends, Elliot's family, who didn't make any conditions and simply attended, and my best friend from university as a bridesmaid. But we didn't try to hide completely, because we knew that sooner or later the truth would come out. Once that happened, chaos broke out. My phone was flooded with messages from my family. My parents were furious. My mother wrote to tell me how my selfish act was going to destroy Tom's life. I still don't understand how my getting married could affect him so badly. As expected, Tom played the victim card as usual, complaining that I didn't invite him. I didn't invite him because I knew I would have to inform my parents, and from my perspective, he didn't do anything to stop their foolishness either. We spoke to him when it all blew up to see if he shared the same opinion as my parents. And although he didn't say so directly, he didn't want to talk to them either, so they would abandon that absurd idea. In a way, he seemed pleased with the possibility that my parents would succeed in their pressure tactics. In the end, I still stand by the decision Elliot and I made. Our wedding was for us. We are not responsible for Tom's problems or for how overprotective my parents have been of him. In contrast, Elliot's family has commented that my parents are acting irrationally. My friends also agree that there is nothing wrong with what we did. When we decided to go ahead with the wedding without my parents, I was aware that this would affect our relationship in the long term. But their demand was not at all reasonable. They weren't asking me to do something simple like including a special menu for Tom because of some dietary restriction. They expected me to completely stop my life because he, at 30 years old, still doesn't know what he wants to do with his. Well, he could find out while he works and does the same as everyone else, doing things we don't always like for a better future. But no, he prefers to wait passively for life to give him rewards for being the spoiled one. Update 1. Yesterday, my mother called to tell me that I need to find a way to resolve this situation. She asked me if I had reconsidered my position and if I was ready to reconcile with the family. The only problem is that I don't have to do anything at all because I haven't made any mistakes in this situation. I got married, and if anyone doesn't like it, they should deal with it in therapy. I don't know. My response was that if they wanted to reconcile, they would be welcome to do so, but that I was not going to apologize if that was what they needed to take that step. It is not my responsibility to solve Tom's problems. It is not my fault what they think I have done to Tom, and it is not my problem that they feel offended. It was then that my mother started to cry. Maybe she was already crying before, but that's when I noticed that she was finding it hard to speak between sobs. She told me that Tom is dealing with depression, and that my actions were making his condition worse. Depression is not a trivial thing, and I have seen friends go through it, so I can understand how much he must be suffering. However, I made it clear to him that what he had asked me to do would not solve his problem, and that it was completely absurd. The world is not going to stop just because he feels bad. That is neither realistic nor healthy. If there's a news story in the paper tomorrow that upsets Tom, what are they going to do? Call to stop it from being published or to stop the event from happening? If Tom gets depressed because a volcano erupts, are they going to try and cover it with their hands? I told him that I am willing to support Tom in appropriate and healthy ways, but that it is time for them to come back to reality and consider things more carefully. At that moment, he was silent for a long time. Then, without warning, he hung up on me. Shortly afterwards, I received a text message from my father. He said that the comments I made during the conversation with my mother were completely inappropriate and that I at least owed her an apology, and of course, another one to Tom. Elliot, for his part, was outraged when he read the message. He suggested that we not respond, as we would only add fuel to the fire. He's right, but it's frustrating when people make false claims just to feel better about themselves. And just when I thought the situation couldn't get any more complicated, my aunt, my mother's sister, contacted me privately. She is one of the most level-headed people in the family and doesn't seem to have inherited my mother's tendency to drama. With her, I felt I could talk about issues that I can't always discuss openly with my parents. She explained that she has been following the whole situation and wanted to give me more context about what is really going on. According to her, what my parents mentioned about Tom is not about a business deal or a new academic title. It is about a marriage proposal. Indeed, Tom is planning to ask his girlfriend of just 3 months, Ivory, to marry him. My parents are fully aware of his plan and believe that this could be a turning point in his life. They are convinced that getting married will give him the stability and motivation he needs to get his life in order. But here comes the most surprising part. Ivory has absolutely no idea about this proposal. None whatsoever. In fact, my aunt told me that Ivory has been confiding in her about some serious doubts he has about the relationship. Apparently, Ivory is considering breaking up with Tom because he is concerned about his lack of direction and his tendency to make big promises without keeping them. My aunt even tried to subtly warn my parents that pressuring Tom to propose might not be the best strategy, especially considering his depressive state. She mentioned that Ivory might not accept, particularly if she already has these doubts. But, as expected, my parents have dismissed these concerns as insignificant. They are firmly convinced that a marriage proposal will solve all the problems. I feel real compassion for Ivory. She has only been with Tom for a few months, and she is already questioning whether the relationship is right for her. The idea that my parents are pressuring Tom to propose will probably make the whole situation worse. Marriage is not a magic solution to personal problems, and I sincerely doubt that Ivory will respond as they expect. I don't know her well, but putting myself in her place, being surprised with a marriage proposal 3 months into a relationship, and precisely with someone I'm considering breaking up with, seems like a terrible idea, a really disastrous one. Furthermore, it is clear that my parents' obsession with Tom's success is completely distorting his perspective. They are so desperate for him to achieve something that they cling to any hope, no matter how unrealistic or potentially harmful it may be. Elliot and I have been discussing how to proceed. He suggested we take a little break from my family to allow the tensions to subside, which honestly seems like an excellent idea. I have already silenced their messages and stopped checking social media for a while, because the constant bombardment of guilt and judgment is exhausting. My aunt thinks I should stand firm, but try to keep the lines of communication open in case my parents finally understand the situation. I'm torn. On the one hand, I don't want to completely cut ties with them, but on the other, I'm tired of being treated as if my life is secondary to Tom's. One positive aspect in the midst of all this chaos has been Elliot's family. His mother even invited us over for dinner last night, and it was the best evening we've had in a long time. No drama or tension, just dinner among adults without any unnecessary complications. His mother even invited us to dinner last night, and it was the best evening we've had in a long time. No drama or tension, just dinner between adults, without any unnecessary complications. It reminded me of what a family should really be like. I don't think a family should be a source of problems, but a refuge, a way to disconnect from everyday difficulties, which are complicated enough as it is. As for Tom, I'm not sure how to proceed. Part of me wants to contact him to make sure he's okay, especially after hearing about his depression. But another part wonders if that would only reinforce the dynamic, where I'm always the one who makes the effort, while he receives preferential treatment without consequences. I don't want to allow his problematic behavior to continue, but I also don't want to abandon him if he really needs help. It's a delicate balance, and I'm still trying to find the right approach. For now, I'm concentrating on Elliot and our new life together. We're planning a little weekend getaway to relax and celebrate our marriage without complications. You can imagine how much we need this break. I greatly appreciate all the support I've received. That's exactly what we came looking for, and that's what we found. I plan to share more information as the situation develops. Update 2. Ivory, Tom's girlfriend, contacted me on Instagram a few days ago. She started by congratulating me on my wedding. Then she explained that she needed to talk to someone about Tom. Someone a little more reasonable than my parents. I didn't know exactly how to respond. I mean, Ivory and I have only seen each other on a few occasions, and we definitely don't have a close relationship. However, she seemed genuinely concerned, so I decided to listen to her. We agreed to meet for coffee. When we finally met, Ibri confirmed what I already knew and revealed a few more things. First, she corroborated what my aunt had already told me. She is indeed planning to break up with Tom. She explained that this is because she is deeply concerned about his total lack of direction in life. He is not committed to any career, he does not take responsibility for anything, and it has gotten to the point where she feels more like his mother than his partner. She confessed to me that she is completely emotionally exhausted. What really struck me was hearing how Tom doesn't even seem to realize that there is a problem. Ivory told me that every time she tries to have a serious conversation with him about his future, he simply changes the subject. He also accuses her of not supporting him enough. She has been trying her best to help him, but she is already exhausted because she doesn't want to be in a relationship where she has to work so hard while on the other side there's no commitment. Ivory has her life perfectly organized. She is a successful professional and clearly has a vision for her future, but according to her, Tom doesn't seem to value that at all. She told me about a time when she offered to help him update his resume and prepare for a job interview. Instead of thanking her for her effort, he laughed and said he didn't need help because he was waiting for something better. Better than what? It's not clear. On another occasion, I suggested that he take a course to develop skills necessary for a job he said he wanted, but again he dismissed it as a waste of time and that he would figure it out for himself. She explained that it's as if he doesn't see her as a partner, or even as someone who could support him, but simply as someone who is there to satisfy his every whim. What really broke my heart was when Ivory started talking about my parents. Apparently, they have been putting her under relentless pressure. They have been telling her that she could help Tom reach his potential, and they have promised to support them both while he gets his life in order. My mother even told Ivory directly that she is good for Tom because she represents a good role model. It is as if they see her as a tool to stabilize Tom, not as a person with her own feelings and limits. Ivory explained to me that this pressure from my parents is one of the main reasons why she wants to end the relationship. They don't care about Ivory as a person, they are only interested in how she can benefit Tom and help him improve. If Ivory were as disorganized as Tom but he loved her, surely they would now be doing everything they could to make her end it with her. But there was still more that Ivory wanted to share with me, as she thought I might understand her better, knowing my current differences with my parents and my brother. She revealed that they have been paying his credit card bills and giving him money supposedly for professional networking events. But guess what? Those so-called networking events are actually outings to drink with his friends. And that's not all. Ivory mentioned that my parents have promised to help Tom start a business using their retirement savings. They are waiting for him to find the right opportunity, but we all know that that is simply a euphemism for saying that Tom is still doing nothing productive, while they continue to finance his lifestyle of self-discovery. Not even the great inventors in history have taken so long to discover something significant. I knew they were overprotecting him, it doesn't surprise me, but this is much more extreme than I initially imagined. I felt a lot of compassion for Ivory. It's clear that she's been doing everything she can to keep the relationship going, because in a way, she loves him, but even she has reached her limit. She is such a kind and intelligent woman who honestly deserves much more. She needs a partner who genuinely supports her, not a project she has to constantly fix. And not to mention, having my parents as in-laws, that would be even worse. Before we said goodbye, Ivory thanked me for listening. She said it had been good for her to finally express everything she had been holding in, and I could see she really meant it. I assured her I was available if she ever needed to talk again, and I meant it. Whatever happens between her and Tom, she deserves support and understanding. After our conversation, I couldn't keep everything she had told me to myself. I knew I should mention it to my parents, so I decided to send them an email. I explained in detail everything that Ivory had shared with me, including all the pressure they have been putting on her and how that has been negatively affecting her relationship with Tom. Because their intervention was not making things move in the direction they wanted, quite the opposite. I tried to make it clear that their behavior is not helping anyone, not Ivory, not Tom, not themselves. I pointed out how their actions are preventing Tom from maturing and taking responsibility for his own life. Trying to be constructive, I suggested that Tom and they consider family therapy as a way of working together in this situation. I even attached some resources I found on overprotective behavior and healthy family dynamics. So far, I haven't heard back from them. I'm not surprised. They're probably upset or perhaps not ready to respond yet. I hope they at least read the email and take time to reflect on what I shared. Even if they don't agree with me immediately, maybe I'll be able to plant a seed of doubt. As for Tom, I sincerely hope that one day he finds his way, because the tools to do so are available. But as long as my parents continue to interfere excessively in his life, it is unlikely that he will succeed. Update 3. First of all, Ebery and Tom have officially ended their relationship. Tom ended it? Just kidding, clearly it was she who ended it. Let's just say it wasn't easy for Tom. He was completely upset, he really didn't see it coming at all. He turned up at our apartment at 2 in the morning, completely drunk, banging on the door and shouting as if he were out of his mind. It was truly terrifying. Elliot opened the door and Tom staggered in, immediately launching into an incoherent rant about how I was to blame for all of this. He claimed that if I had waited to get married, none of this would have happened. The level of irrationality is truly alarming. Elliot remained calm throughout the episode. Thank goodness for having him by my side, and after trying to reason with Tom for what seemed like an eternity, he finally asked him for an Uber and made sure he got home safely. But the whole situation left me deeply disturbed. I could hardly sleep that night. The next day, my parents called a family meeting. They said it was time to clear the air and decide how to proceed. Elliot and I agreed to attend, but I made it perfectly clear that this was not going to be a debate about my marriage. I informed them in advance that we would talk, but only if they respected our boundaries. They reluctantly agreed, so we decided to go. Tom didn't show up. Big surprise. Apparently his hangover was too bad to bother attending, so it was just me, Elliot, and my parents. My mother started crying from the beginning, saying that she feels like she's losing not only Tom, but now me too. My father tried to keep his composure, but eventually admitted that they are terrified that Tom will never get his life together. They even expressed fear that he might hurt himself. What really struck me was when he mentioned that my success makes Tom's difficulties seem even worse. Really, that is a tremendously distorted perspective. I told them straight that their constant overprotection of Tom isn't helping anyone. It's causing him harm, and it has created a terribly toxic family dynamic for all of us. I pointed out how they have even put their financial stability at risk to keep constantly rescuing him. And it's not producing any positive results. The more they strive to help him, the more they perpetuate this problematic cycle. The meeting concluded relatively positively, I guess. On the plus side, they finally admitted that asking me to postpone my wedding was a mistake. They even apologized for how they handled the whole situation and said they understood why Ellie and I decided to move forward without including them. However, they still clearly show pain at having been excluded and are not completely prepared to accept our decision. The good news is that they agreed to stop overprotecting Tom, although I'll believe it when I see it in practice. They even suggested that he start therapy. That seems like a step in the right direction, as long as they actually follow through. So yes, that's the current situation. There has been some progress, even if it's just baby steps. The decision we have made with Elliot is to distance ourselves a little from my family for the time being. We have communicated this to my parents, and they seem to fully understand. That represents progress if they manage to respect it. We will only know in a future update, after a while. It is the only way to confirm whether or not my parents kept their word. Update 4. Tom has been harassing Ebery since their relationship ended. He has been calling her constantly, sending her private messages on social networks from different accounts, and has even sent her unsolicited gifts. He has confessed that he was planning to ask her to marry him and even showed her a ring to prove that he was serious. Ivory has rejected all his advances and has repeatedly asked him to please stop contacting her. My parents have been paying for therapy for him, but he has only attended on 2 occasions. And instead of insisting or somehow forcing him to continue attending, they have declared that they can do nothing more for him. What an example of responsible parenting. They want to get rid of the problem, when they are the ones mainly responsible for him being the way he is now. And because of them, Ivory is suffering my brother's inappropriate behavior. When all this started, They simply said that sooner or later, Tom would get over her and find another woman. Which I find extremely disturbing, because it's as if they expected Tom to simply get tired of harassing Ebery and look for another victim. That solves absolutely nothing and is proven to be completely wrong. Not only has my brother not found another person he is interested in, quote-unquote, but he has also intensified his harassment of Ivory. This has led to her being forced to apply for a restraining order against Tom. And my parents, with their infinite wisdom, blamed Ivory for this situation. Yes, they tried to tell her that this was going to ruin Tom's progress. Make no mistake, there has been no progress, unless you are measuring progress in reverse and consider regression as progress. As a result, Ebery has also filed a restraining order against my parents. At this rate, I joke with her that it will be my turn soon. We have been communicating regularly, as I have been through similar experiences with my family and can fully understand her situation. Not only has she filed a restraining order against Tom, but she has also made 2 formal complaints against him due to some disturbing gifts he has sent her, accompanied by equally disturbing messages. In one of the gifts, which consisted simply of flowers, he included a note saying something like that he couldn't accept rejection, as he didn't want to live in a world where he couldn't be with her. This can be interpreted in many worrying ways, suggesting that he could hurt Ivory or himself. The second gift was even stranger, a kind of pre-Columbian craft that is difficult to describe in words, but which we were able to identify through an internet search as something related to life and death. The accompanying message was also cryptic and could be interpreted in a number of ways. Ivory has filed the corresponding complaints, but the police have simply told her that they will investigate, and then in the meantime she should take security measures. I thought that alerting the police was precisely a security measure, but apparently they are not very useful in these cases. I'm not sure what I can do to help her effectively. Offering to let her live with us, apart from the fact that she wouldn't be living alone, I don't think is an adequate solution. It could even make the situation worse. I've tried to talk to my parents about it so that they do something about Tom, because I think he could listen to them, but they're taking the matter too calmly, as if it weren't as serious as it really is. I feel like sending them a demonic-looking craft to see if they still think it's insignificant. Or better yet, I could hang it in their room in the middle of the night, so that when they wake up, they'll get the scare of their lives. We'd laugh together and I'd tell them it's not that bad. You had a heart attack, Dad. It's nothing if we've all had a good laugh. I'm not sure how this situation could end, but I doubt it will be in a positive way. Right now, my main concern is for Ivory's safety. Update 5. Finally, we know how far my brother Tom's madness has gone, and at least Ivory has not had to suffer the worst consequences. My parents have reconsidered, not completely, but enough to try to make Tom see reason. They suggested that perhaps it was time to leave his obsession with Ebery behind and concentrate on other things. This triggered a heated argument on the phone that Tom took extremely badly. He decided to show up at my parents' house in the middle of the night, although fortunately he didn't hang any demonic-looking figures there. However, in his drunken state, he had an altercation with my parents and even threw a cup of coffee, which my mother had served him, directly at her. It only caused a small cut on his arm and a slight burn, but it was still a pretty serious incident. My parents called the police and, for once, the officers properly fulfilled their duty to protect and serve. However, my parents have failed in their responsibility once again. What my brother needs, in addition to intensive psychological therapy, more forceful treatments, or some more drastic intervention, is to be in legal custody. But they have decided to drop the charges on the condition that he be admitted to a psychiatric center. My concern is that these centers tend to have less strict security measures. Could it work? Maybe, but the risk of him escaping is considerable. Update 6. I was halfway through describing this in response to a comment when I decided it would be better to include it as a full update, if only for old time's sake. They haven't heard from me or my family in several years. I was responding to someone who was asking specifically about my brother. I can say that he has been released from psychiatric hospitalization and has shown some signs of improvement. I can't say exactly to what extent, but the people who have interacted with him say that he seems to function normally in society. I have completely cut off contact with my parents, as well as with my brother, because they agreed to take him into their home when he was discharged from the hospital. I clearly warned them that I would not approach them in that case, and I am firmly maintaining that decision. I am glad to hear that my brother seems to be a normal person now, but let me keep my reservations about him. I prefer to continue to keep my distance in case he displays problematic behavior like before. I no longer worry about Ivory at the moment because he has met someone new, moved to another city, and has concrete plans to get married. Our relationship has naturally cooled with distance, but we still occasionally communicate. He is aware of my brother's situation, and I can't say that he is particularly happy about it, but the fact that he is far away geographically gives him some peace of mind. I hope that the person who commented can see this update. Otherwise, I will have to copy and paste it as a direct reply.